Well, listeners, as you know, the Real Good Film Festival is on this weekend, and we're chatting to some of the filmmakers that have got films as part of this year's festival. And we're going to start off with Tadpoles, a really, really interesting short film that's showing as part of the festival this year. And we've actually got the director of Tadpoles, James, on the phone right now to chat a little bit about it. Welcome to the program, James.
Hi Dave, thanks for having me. Nice to be here.
So James, tell us a little bit about Tadpoles. Where did the idea for this film come from, and how did you go about putting the film together?
Actually, it was a pretty unique experience. It was all rather spontaneous. We were in between lockdowns, down down on the Mornington Peninsula at a property, and these two kids, Will and Daniela, both 8 and 12. Kind of jolted down a paddock to where we were staying that one day from their neighbour. And I'd never worked with kids before, and we'd been trapped away. I thought, wow, this is a great opportunity to work with some kids. So I scripted up an idea in maybe 4 or 5 days, based on my own memories of living in the area, and then slowly convinced them and their dad to dive into some filmmaking.
Awesome. So they say never work with children or animals. What was it that made you think this is going to work, and how did you find the experience of working with children?
It was probably outside of the normal constructs, I think, because, the crew was actually just 4 people, one of them being my sister and her partner. She was the production designer, he was the cinematographer. And I really tried to keep it as fresh and light as possible for them. They weren't given the script, so we were kind of just bouncing between moments, and I was keeping them as entertained and as engaged as possible throughout, so that they didn't feel kind of overburdened by the themes of the film or anything we were trying to explore through it. We had a few brief conversations throughout the process, but no, it was really enjoyable, and we had bow and arrow archery sessions set up in between scenes, and we put fruit on trees and things like that. So really I was just trying to keep them as much in their kind of childlike state as possible.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. Does it almost make it a little bit more free? Because as a director you can just say, look, I want you to sit on this chair and look sad kind of thing, rather than having to go over and over it like you do sometimes with a trained actor. Did you find that actually made it a little bit freer?
Yeah, completely. And the biggest thing what I was most concerned about heading into it was, they'd never seen big cameras before or audio equipment. So once the dad had given the okay on the script, it was really kind of just desensitizing them to that equipment related stuff. And also, they were having to leave, I think, after 7 days or something, and I spent the first 3-4 days just, becoming friends with them essentially, and every day the dad would be going, mate, what are you doing? You've only got 5 days left now, 4 days left now, when are you going to start filming? But I knew it was really important to build a trust and a rapport between me and them, so that they could be natural, and I think that really does show in the film.
So how many days did you actually end up filming? It sounds like it was a pretty quick shoot filming-wise.
Yeah, it was probably only, I think it was 3 or 4 days, maybe less, which is pretty average, I think, for a film of this length. Yeah.
So you mentioned before as well that you, when you were coming up with the idea for the film, that you were thinking about what it was like for yourself growing up in that area. So did you end up making this kind of a personal story as well, or is it completely fictional?
It's kind of a blend between the two, I think. It stemmed from my memories and sentiments of grief and experiencing grief for the first time, particularly around that age, which did occur between me and a grandparent.
Yeah.
Funnily enough, there had been a similar experience for the kids not too long ago before the film, which I wasn't aware of. So that maybe did help a bit with the conversations we had, or how they responded to certain scenes, like on the beach.
Yeah.
but no, it was a fictionalized event and narrative that allowed us all to kind of talk about these things together at the end of the filming, and to share, I guess, the importance of not holding on to these things and communicating them with other people.
How did you find the experience of filming it where you grew up when it was so personal? Because I remember recently I heard the director of All of Us Strangers talking, and he said that because that film is about a part of his life or something that he went through, but he also shot it in the house where he grew up. And he said, looking back, he was like, oh, wow, what have I done when he stepped into the house? Like, because it made it so much more personal. How did you find that experience, filming in an area where you grew up when it was something so personal?
Yeah, it was really touching and moving, especially as well doing it all with my sister. And, it was a film about two young siblings, and she was there really involved throughout the whole process. And mainly, I think the biggest thing or the biggest help was, it allowed me to tap into certain secret locations and nooks and crannies around the area that gave us some really, I think, vivid and tactile frames for the film.
Yeah.
And allowed us to kind of, really just use the space around us to the best of our ability. And we were in between, it was kind of, I can't remember exactly, we were in between lockdowns, I think. And so it was just a really great way to kind of bring us all together. And the film was a bit of an experiment in how me and the cinematographer could work with my sister, the designer, to create these frames in this minimalist narrative with as little at our disposal as possible.
So, James, how do you feel now that Tadpoles is about to screen at the Real Good Film Festival?
Yeah, it's great. It actually had its first screening many, many years ago at a thing called the Lido Short Stack, where we got an audience award, and it's gone around the world now, and I imagine this is probably going to be the last time it plays anywhere, so it's kind of nice to have that complete circle coming back to its home.
So if people go along and see Tadpoles this weekend, and they fall in love with it and they want to know more about you, where are you off to now as a filmmaker? Like, what's your next project that you're hoping to work on?
So I used to be involved with a few organisations and with my old school in a program that would basically go to schools and facilitate conversations around notions of self and vulnerability and empathy. And it would be very beneficial often for the more maybe antisocial or disruptive students after these 6-week courses. And I'm working on a short film that's exploring the impact of one of these sessions on one of these boys and how it changes his dynamic in his social group.
Okay, well, we'll definitely look out for that one as well. But James, to finish off, what would you like to say to people who are heading along to Real Good this weekend? What would you like to say to them before they sit down and watch Tadpoles?
Well, I mean, you can't really go wrong with any of the sessions you choose, I think. They've curated a fantastic lineup, and I've been watching the festival, Chris's festival, from afar for a while now. So I think, just come on down and enjoy a beer on the rooftop. I hope you come to see Tadpoles and we can have a chat about it afterwards. I think people seem to really respond to their own childhoods when they watch this film, and it brings something out of them. So do say hey if you come along.